Writing is about the process. It's about listening and recognizing remnants of your story in the stories of others. When we share our stories with each other, we share the resonance of the human experience. The By Firelight podcast is your invitation to join our circle, a circle of writers, poets, seekers, and storytellers as we capture our living in words. This multifaceted living with joy, grief, love, growth, and loss is shared among us in your legacy, your story. The things you choose to do with your days as they unfold matter here. I'm your host, Betsy Delzer. I'm many things, but in this gathering, I'm a painter, poet, and writer, and I'm honored to be your guide through these episodes. Together, we'll find our muses in the rich and heart-expanding conversations with incredible guests, many who are like minds and all outrageously inspiring hearts. When you press play, you're here in the circle to share this space with us. By Firelight.
Aaron Nelson is an explorer at heart, drawn to fully expressing and experiencing his aliveness. Through prose and storytelling, he captures both the fleeting moment and the beauty of life's unfolding. Aaron spent about 2 decades as a real estate broker before transitioning into investing, renovating homes, and creating thoughtful spaces that feel both grounded and inspiring. While focusing on success in business and building something significant externally, he was very fortunate with the growth and opportunities that came his way. He leaned into his passion for real estate, but now is more interested in navigating inner landscapes. Recent life changes have inspired him to turn inward as well as outward, deepening his journey of self-discovery. With a fresh, open heart, Aaron shares his words, meditations, and reflections as part of the life he is consciously creating. Well, Aaron Nelson, I am so happy that you're here with me today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Feel honored to be here. Thank you.
I always start with the question of kind of looking back or looking ahead and just wondering what your younger or older self would want to tell us today.
Yeah, I think my younger self really knew how to have fun and would say, don't forget to have fun, that the point is not some like external measures of success that I kind of like adopted in my adulthood, but more, are you having fun? And I was thinking about like playing home run derby in my friend's cul-de-sac, and success was like smashing the ball over his roof and getting like the most points possible. So I think just like finding ways in life to flow and have fun and laugh and be connected to my authentic self, I would say that's what my younger self would encourage me to do.
Awesome. Well, I hope we have fun today, that we can bring that levity in. Okay.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Speaking of levity, I always think it's a little interesting, like how I find my guests. Many of them are people that have been in my writing group for 20 years, which is sort of what inspired this podcast in the first place. But several people, that, including you, I just have found on Substack or Instagram and have started following your work and reach out and ask for this conversation. You popped up as like one of those suggested things. I don't even know how the algorithm works. Yeah. And I started down the rabbit trail of reading your work, and I was like, oh, I want to have a conversation with this writer. So thanks for also just taking a risk on this perfect stranger.
Yeah, no, I kind of love those serendipitous moments where it's just like the universe or God just like brings me something too, or like, okay, like I'm trying to say yes more in my life. And so just decided to say yes. You seem like a very easy person to talk to, and I like what you're doing in the world. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, let's give people a little bit of a frame of reference of like where or what you're doing in the world, whether you go down the work trail or where in the world you are. You're in California, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in far northern California, a little place called Redding, in the midst of actually moving for a season for the fall down to San Francisco, which has been in my heart for a long time. It's been on my bucket list to live in a walkable city, and I've lived in Redding my entire adult life. And so I'm just about to embark on this new journey where I'm going to be living right next to Golden Gate Park, and everything is, walkable, bikeable, and very like urban environment, obviously. So never had that, and I'm really looking forward to that. So that's where I will be next week.
Do you feel like there is a truth about like our bodies or our hearts being pulled to a certain place on the planet?
I mean, I think that definitely could be true logistically, because I have 4 kids who still live in Reading and that I want to see and keep in contact with, multiple times a month. And so for me, it was just logistically the biggest like urban walkable place within a 3-hour drive. It just made sense for me. So, but the more I've actually explored and gotten to know San Francisco, it definitely is like pulling on my heartstrings, and I really, really love it. There's so much to do and see and experience there that, I really like underestimated how great of a city that was.
Yeah. It's interesting. My son, my youngest, is going to be a senior. I've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast recently because it's really on my mind. But when I think about being a solo empty nester at the end of this next school year, I'm really starting to think a little bit about like, it has never set well with me that I have done my entire adult life in the Midwest of America, right?
Yeah.
Because I grew up overseas. I didn't live in America until I was in middle school, for long stretches of time. And I think I always pictured myself a little bit of an expat somewhere, right? Like I thought that that's the life I would lead just because that was the upbringing and experience I had. But in the last year, there was actually an opening at the school that I went to in London, England, and I applied for it. And for a moment, like it was like a hot second that Jet and I, my son and I, were like thinking, would we ever do a year over there and just see,
Wow.
Yeah. But I feel like to some degree, I'm not sure if I'm brave enough. I have such a community here. I have so many like deeply rooted relationships. And I feel like the bravery would be actually making some distance with those because there's, just such close ties. But I also would love a season, right? Somewhere else, wherever that might be. I'm just not sure exactly yet.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can always keep that as your home base if you have community there, but go out and have a sabbatical for 6 months or a year and just try it out.
Yeah. Is that what you're doing? You're trying this out for a little while, San Francisco, or why is it just a season?
I think I've just been for many years just feeling a little constricted in Reading. Like it's a pretty small place, and I landed here to go to college, and then I started a career and a family. And it's just one of those things that just kind of like, calcified into this is my life and this is who I am. But it wasn't really intentionally choosing it at some point. It was more just like, I'm kind of here, but I feel a little bit stuck and I maybe want to explore and be in some other places and experience other areas. And so it's more of just this intentionality right now in my life and just this exploration. And I'm going to just try something different. It may or may not work, but I'm going to try it for a few months and see how it feels.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have spoken a little bit just in getting to know each other about your journey with meditation. And I would say maybe not so much the outer landscape of travel, but the inner landscape, right? And
yes.
I'm wondering if you can just, tell me a little bit about that. Like, when did you start and how would you talk about that right now in your life?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So I woke up a few months ago. And sometimes I'll get these random words or phrases when I'm like half awake and kind of like a dreamlike state. And this phrase came to me one morning when I woke up, and it was just rigorous exploration. And I was like, that's interesting. Like rigorous exploration. What does that mean? I started like looking up rigorous. I mean, I know what rigorous means, but just like, you just think more about it, consciously when you have something like that, just that comes to you that I didn't conjure up myself, So I would say I'm definitely, I think a lot about that. I'm in this season of rigorous exploration, just this exploration that's kind of my job right now. It almost gave me permission to just be an explorer and not just do it like, maybe I'll like dabble in this or that, but actually like dive in and actually like, somebody's doing something rigorously, like they're really like putting a lot of effort into it. There's intentionality, there's heart, there's focus. And so it's kind of giving me permission to just explore like with a lot of heart and passion. So there's a lot of things in this last year. I was divorced. My divorce was finalized about a year ago. We were separated about 2 years before that. So definitely been in this season of rediscovering myself and almost like reimagining what life could be like or has to be like when it doesn't look like it looked for, more than 2 decades. To be honest, there's a psychedelic retreat that I'm going on in about a week. And as a part of that, a prerequisite was to learn transcendental meditation. And so that was because the integrative process of incorporating these kind of retreats, it's not just like a one and done kind of thing. It's actually, we want to learn how to integrate these experiences that are like deep and profound and meaningful. And so transcendental meditation is something that I'm introducing into my life. And I think it's very helpful in integrating some of these experiences that I'm having. How my teacher describes it to me, which I like, it's steeping in the realm of pure consciousness. And I kind of like that, just steeping in the realm of pure consciousness. So much of my life, and I think our lives, are lived where we're kind of asleep at the wheel, we're not really like conscious. And so I think TM is helping me to bring more of that, deep awareness into my life.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. So let's break this down a little bit, because I could imagine our listeners kind of being like, okay, so first of all, they may not wake up with a ping. We call that in my world pings, right? Of just this this landing of an idea or the words. So the rigorous exploration is this, I'm going to use the words cosmic invitation, and you engage with it because it feels like something you're interested in. It kind of comes to you in this lucid dream state. I don't want to get like so granular, and yet I do, in the sense that if somebody has an idea or an urge, sometimes the flame burns out right there. You took it and then now are, just about to go on a retreat. So there's a long journey there, a long rope where you kept the fire burning. You kept adding things to it. One thing I'm curious about is, what's a first step or second step? If somebody out there is listening I can think of some of my friends who might be listening to us right now and be like, well, I'm curious. I want to explore with rigor, but like, what's the first micro movement? Maybe they're not going to hop on retreat next week, but what's the first micro step of opening toward that, if that's something that somebody's feeling a pull toward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, well, and this actually could segue into, some aspects of writing that have been really important to me, which would be journaling. I think for me, that journaling is where I kind of explore my curiosities, and just I'm able to kind of do this free association kind of writing, just freestyle, where I'm not thinking about who's going to read it, because nobody's ever going to read it. And so I think journaling, that's a really good way for people if they want to be open to more of like a rigorous exploration. That's a very concrete way to just first start with, well, what are the ideas that are just kind of bouncing around in your head? Just get them out on paper, and then see over time, like when you journal every day, like I do, and write morning pages first thing in the morning, you just discover the things that kind of keep coming up as like repeated thoughts and repeated curiosities. I think sometimes I'll have things that are just kind of little like blips on the radar, like they're here today and gone tomorrow, right? Yeah. But the things that I really pay attention to are the things that continually come up when I'm journaling, for not just like weeks, but usually like months or years. Journaling is a really good way to learn about yourself and what your, deeper desires are.
Yeah. Almost like you're looking for patterns and themes to emerge.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned morning pages. That's inspired by Julia Cameron's Artist Way. And then just this free write or kind of free association that came up in a conversation that I had with Bethany Taves on this podcast earlier, where it's just, if somebody's like, well, okay, so journaling, I'm still not sure. It's literally, when you're talking about that, you're just talking about opening up a notebook, and it sounds like yours is a private notebook, right? So you're opening it up, and you're maybe setting a timer or just looking at 10 minutes, and you just start writing, right? And you just kind of release that editor piece of like trying to create something. You're just trying to get the words out, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of freedom in that. Just, it's like a brain dump, and it's usually first thing in the morning, where there's, sometimes I'm writing down my dreams that I had at night, but it's I don't know. It's like everything that fills our head. And sometimes it's just clutter that just needs to like come out. But other times there's little gems that are in there, that I find, that I stumble upon. But yeah, it's a very different way of writing than like if I'm writing with the thought of I'm going to share this with somebody someday. And I find it to be incredibly liberating to write like that.
Yeah. Sometimes, though, would you say you look back and read it and you can pull or extract some ideas or concepts or even lines that might turn itself into something else?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. That happens frequently. Mm-hmm. But that's not the intention.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So aside from journaling as an access point for someone beginning, what about the meditation process? Because one thing about my journey in my career is I taught for 15 years and I had just this great opportunity to work with young artists, which I will never stop being grateful for because they're so uninhibited and delightful. And, there's so much joy in like 5 to 10-year-old art. So I got to literally be like soaked in that all day for 15 years. Which I think filled my wells enough to be able to sustain some work with adults after that. But after that, I literally transitioned into a role where my primary purpose was to support staff, to support people in schools. And the vehicle at that time was through yoga and mindfulness. So as part of my own I'm going to say like almost like research for my job or just like wanting to do my job well. I really spent a lot of time researching lots of different types of meditation, right? So I went and meditated in community. I went to sanghas. I didn't actually do longer than a weekend retreat. And I went just as far as meeting with someone to talk about TM. Like it was a little bit of a weird situation where it was like, you're Googling. Like, I feel like that's an access point. If you're really curious, just start Googling it, right? Like, let's figure out where you could go to learn about this because there's many meditation centers and places where you can find teachers and such. But I found this place in Madison, where I am, Wisconsin, and I just went and met with someone and she explained TM to me. Well, this is a good transition. In my meditation practice, there was this several times I feel where I would be sitting on a cushion. I really try to kind of craft the space so that when my children were little, they knew that was mommy's space, like in the corner of the dining room. And then now it's in the corner of my bedroom. But where I'm sitting and maybe have like my candles burning and then in the stillness, sometimes it does feel like an idea or a poem or something will download. I notice it. I just try to not get too attached to it. And then after, I'll spend some time writing. So it's interesting because as I was reading your Substack, there was one piece that really reminded me of something that I had written on the meditation cushion a long time ago. So we'll see if it feels right to share it later when we're sharing work. But do you feel that sometimes there's a richness of ideas that comes either after or through your meditation practice regarding writing?
Definitely. There's a high correlation between just getting still, whether it's through meditation, just deep, deep awareness and quietness where something can kind of be ushered in and just be presented to me like, oh, this is a little nugget of an idea. Like it's nothing really yet, but it's just like, there's something in that. It's just like a seed of an idea that comes. And then I kind of get to do the work of exploring that and discovering what's inside that seed. Yeah. So definitely moments of, meditation or like laying down and listening to a favorite song or just something that kind of transports me out of my logical mind and into a more like beautiful kind of artistic, reflective space.
Yeah. Yeah. So many of my guests who have come on this podcast have a professional world and then this personal world where they spend their time writing. What for you, I mean, I know you have a Substack, but how did you start that? What was the impetus or inspiration for starting that?
I've had several kind of like false starts almost. 7 or 8 years ago, I had a Medium. Do you remember that? I think they're still around. Medium.com. Yeah, I think
I thought you were talking about like a human who is like an intuitive. No.
Medium.com. It's like a writing. So it was kind of the Substack back in the day, 7 or 8 or 9 years ago, maybe. So I've always had this thing in me where I want to be generative. I want to be giving something. I want to be putting something out into the world. But then oftentimes I get frustrated. The perfectionist in me just feels like it's way too much work and energy to try to do it in a way that to bring it out in a way that I feel like that I would be proud of, putting work into the world. And so I've had several false starts, but I think I'm in a season where I'm okay with things not being perfect, not being completely polished or refined, and just trying to, put things out there. So, Substack just seemed like a good idea. I didn't really do a ton of research. I just know other writers are building audiences there. And it just seemed, I didn't want the hassle and the headache of having my own, blog that I had to like manage and maintain, like the domain name and everything. So it just seemed like the simplest way to start putting stuff out there.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm a big fan of some podcasters out there in California. And I have to say recently, one of them was talking about her experience on Substack. And she was saying like, I just started and, it's going to generate an extra 100,000 this year. And I was like, well, damn, I'm like, I'm doing something wrong on Substack right at the moment. But I think for me, I started one as well, but it's almost like I just was like, okay, just leap, just do it. And then I just haven't consistently shown up to figure out my relationship to it, if that makes sense. So do you have some sort of like schedule or ritual with it, or you just post when something feels postable?
Yeah, it's probably not the best to model after me, but I think it's just when the inspiration comes, when I have to have the time and the grace to do it, I'll put something out there. And so there's no schedule at this point. Yeah, maybe someday, but not yet.
Yeah. Right now, does your writing mostly generate from the journaling, or do you sit down with your laptop, or what's your creative process like?
My creative process, there's still a fair amount of frustration involved with getting it out, with saying what I want to say, as I think is often the case with the creative process. It often starts with journaling, and then there's an idea that I start pulling the thread on and just following. And I definitely get into the weeds with, exactly how kind of like one word fits together with another word and how this sentence looks with that one. And it just depends on if I'm like writing something that's poetry or more expository, more like an article or a story. It depends. And I write on my laptop. It's a good question. I'm trying to figure out how I actually do this.
Yeah. Well, when you go to your Substack, you do have a mixture of both, right? Like there's I think the most recent post is a poem, and you have several of those. And then you have others that are a little bit more like storytelling, right? So it almost feels like you're trying to capture a moment in time, or I don't know. I do feel there's this liberatory thread moving through your work, of just that feeling of like where you said even feeling constricted in Reading and then moving to San Francisco. And it's almost these life moves seem to mirror some of the stories that you're telling as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's something that I feel like I'm trying to work out when I'm writing that's oftentimes, constricted or like closed, or just something I'm trying to unearth, that's buried deep down. And I feel like I just like need to get at this thing. Right.
Yeah.
When I really get in the moment, like it doesn't feel like a choice. I just feel like drawn to it and like compelled to figure out how I want to express this thing that's trying to be expressed.
Yeah. I think, as a painter, sometimes too, I feel like I remember starting my painting journey. And then once I moved into the gallery world, I was really doing a lot of just like large scale abstracts, and people would be like, oh, I see this landscape. And I'm like, I wanted them so much to just stop looking for something, because I was like, they're not trees, but they can be, we're always trying to do that. But I also then had a moment about 10 years after that gallery era of my career where I just totally went down a different road, slightly like you could tell it was my work, but I started doing something pretty different. And I've been thinking about that a little bit as it relates to writing, because being inspired by all of you writers, I've been dabbling a little bit in a little bit more of the storytelling, right? Some vignettes. I started an episodic memoir this summer about dating in my 40s, which will have to wait until I'm no longer a public servant and working in the schools to really do anything with. Yes. I mean, I just feel like
now I want to read it.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the problem, is that people are like, what? I want to hear, the title, the working title of it is called Whatever Happened with Hot Dad. And it's like these little vignettes. So I went down that road, and then I'm like, and then like back up the truck while I am working in schools, I started writing this more informational, technical about like training emotional intelligence in today's teen. Totally different, right?
Yeah.
Whoa. And then I've got this like poet who sits in circles with women and have been for 20 years. And she's got just so much longing and so many things she's trying to work out too. So it's
amazing.
Interesting to sort of give myself the permission to show up in these various like versions of me,
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. You're not limited to just one.
I mean, I feel sometimes like I got to pick it and stick it, but we're just flowing with it. So one of your stories that you tell on Substack is about, and I don't know how far down the cave you want to take us, but it's about darkness, and it's a retreat in the dark. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just a solo, this place up a few hours north into the Oregon wilderness. They have like they're basically like bunkers that they built, almost like hobbit holes built into the ground. And you go underground there's different lengths of stays, but I was there for 4 nights and 5 days.
And do you come out? Do you come out of the bunker?
Well, yeah, I'm here, right? I mean, you eventually come out.
But all the
Oh no, that whole time you're there. Like you're shut in. Like it's completely pitch black. It's sensory deprivation, like, to the max. Like, yeah, there's no
candlelight,
nothing,
flashlight.
No. That's the point, is to not be able to see anything.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that just right now I'm like sweating thinking about that. Cause I was thinking like, well, you go and you do like almost like a pod, and you go like float or something.
Oh,
but
interesting.
This is like 5 days of pitch black.
Yes, there is a bathtub with warm water. So it is kind of pod-like when you're floating in that. I took a bath every night.
I mean, if you can find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I learned to pee sitting down again. Yes.
Yeah.
That was much easier.
Oh, my goodness. So was this part of your rigorous exploration? Like, was this kind of part and parcel to that, or this was something else?
This was before I got that phrase, but it's definitely, I think I've been in that phase for a while, probably at least 7 or 8 months. So this was, I think about 8 months ago now. I think it was in April or May.
Okay.
I did the retreat.
So you wrote about that when you came out of the dark.
Yeah.
And what was it that you wanted to say about that experience? If you were to summarize your writing, or even if you were to summarize just your experience,
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd probably say different things now than I did a few months ago, because it's one of these journeys that continues to unfold. Like what I learned, what I experienced, I oftentimes kind of go back to that place when I was in the darkness, and I actually realized it was very nurturing. It was incredibly comforting to just get to know myself and just to be with myself in that way, where there was I think we just have so many defense mechanisms and ways of like bolstering ourselves up and our ego like coming to the forefront. But when all of that is stripped away and you don't have any of your normal defenses to fall back on, and it's just pitch black and it's like primal, like you're going back to, oh my God, like I'm exactly that's what I was going to say. It was very womb-like. In fact, I had a moment in there that was really pretty unique and pretty special, where I did feel like I was back in the womb, and I was trying to, every morning the owner, Scott, would come and he would like bring the food for the day. There was like this double door that he would open his side and put it in this place. And then later I would get it from my side, and he would like stoke the fire from the outside. There's like a wood fire. And so then he would talk to me for a few minutes. And it was like this one moment of human interaction that was like so precious to me, because it was just, just me and myself the whole time, aside from those moments. And so he was talking to me, and I was frustrated because I was trying to express something with words, and it wasn't coming to me, and I couldn't find the words, and I wanted to. And I kind of was taken back to the womb. And it was this moment of like, when you were in the womb, like, how did he say it now? I haven't thought about this for a little bit.
Was he kind of like prompting you to think like, so I thought that it would be like, you have eggs out here, whatever. And he's like, no, this is not like, you're actually having like an actual interaction with him.
Oh yeah. He is like a very like deep, he's very deep. He's very nurturing and kind. And, when he asks that question, how are you doing, Aaron? Like, it just like goes to my soul, like, oh my God, I'm not doing good today,
Yeah.
And I just was, I was taken back to the womb where I didn't have to say anything to justify my existence. I didn't have to have these logical thoughts that my brain could like conjure up and like justify anything about life. I didn't have words when I was in the womb, and I didn't really even have thoughts. So what did I have? I had feelings. I had sensations. I could just feel things. And I really was taken back to that womb experience of being so vulnerable and just weak, but like still so important. Like I was so precious when I was a baby in the womb, even when I couldn't justify my existence, or I couldn't say anything smart that sounded smart. Like I just was valuable because I existed, And so I think I was brought back to that place in the womb where I was in this, like the earth that felt very womb-like, I'm valuable because I exist. And that's what matters the most. And I felt that, I felt that in my core and my soul. And that was very comforting and nurturing.
I love that. I do. This is connected to the piece of writing that came up for me when I was thinking about how meditation has been. So do you mind if I read that and then we'll segue into you reading?
Oh, please do. Please do.
Okay.
Yep.
So I can remember exactly where my meditation cushion used to be was next to a great big tree. And I remember just sort of looking out and being in both places. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a few years old, but this morning I became the bird. My eyes saw the nest I was creating, felt the wisps of fall's decay in my beak as I wove our home. It felt so big. This morning I became the roots that years ago clawed and sunk into the earth, surrounded, held, permanent. For as much as I know, I, the root, held by you, the earth. This morning I became the bud, the spiral magic of my petals enfolding my center. I thought about opening. I had the choice. I had no choice. This morning I became the riverbed, and as the water rushed over my reeds, I held the space between earth and sky. And this morning I became the morning, the rose meets gray of dawn's first light. I tried on the new day, the expanse of beginning, pulsing as my rays stretched over your horizon.
It's so beautiful. Wow. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I felt the womb of that cave in there, right? Like surrounded and held by the earth.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that. For some reason, this came across my radar. It had been published on Elephant Journal several years ago, and it just popped up in my feed recently. And I was thinking about it and then thinking about my meditation that came from and you. So I'm just going to trust that all those dots are connecting somewhere. Yeah.
Yes, I believe that too. Yeah.
Good. All right. So what do you have for us? I'd love to hear one from you.
Okay. I think I'll read. It actually is similar to what you just shared. I just think that, like, I don't know, the earth, like being really grounded and just being like present to nature in such an intimate way was really beautiful. I loved how you expressed that. I'm going to read that recent one that I wrote called Dissolving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been fun for me. I think lately this is kind of the most interesting, fun style of writing, just poetry, trying to express the ineffable experiences that I'm having in life through poetry. It just feels right, you know?
Yeah.
So I remember that day. Time was slow. Sweet grasses, wildflowers, and the wind tickling my face, my mouth opening for a drink. My eyes were closed. In the back of my throat, I felt hunger, the kind that makes you cry. I was empty, but not in a sad way, not at all. The lake was deep turquoise, the soft ground green, the earth hushed quiet, my hoodie pulled over my head. I was lying face down, felt the dirt under me, cool and familiar, like my body was born from it, like it wanted to go back. Then suddenly the sun came out for the first time, and an orgasm of hot, burning waves pulsed through my sweatshirt, into my back, my skin, my bones. The mystery of earth and sun, giving life, giving death. The sweet surrender of my serpent body dissolving.
I could really very much see and feel the moment of the face down on the earth. And then the pressure, right, that we feel on the front side body. I think of it all the time and on my yoga practice or on my yoga mat and in my yoga practice is just that the back towards the sky, front side toward the earth, but also, there's a surrender there.
Yeah.
Why did you choose the word dissolving as the title?
Well, so a little bit of background. The experience that comes from was from about a month ago. And I did a really cool hike up at Mount Lassen, which is close to me. And it's just a really beautiful, serene place. And it was one of my psychedelic journeys. And so it was, I just had these moments where like I was touching the dirt, like with my fingers, and in a way that like I felt like I was a part of the earth and the earth was a part of me in a very real way. Like I was just like, oh my God, like I came from this. I really did. Like I came from the earth and I'm going back to the earth. And it wasn't like a scary thing. It was just a thing. Like this is like the cycle of life, you know? And so there's something about just that dirt and just like when I was laying down and I just felt so, I mean, it is hard to describe it, but I just felt so at one with the earth, with the ground. And it just almost felt like, especially with the sun, when the sun came out and my body was on the ground, I felt like I was dissolving into the ground in a way that I'd never experienced that sensation before. And it was, like I said, it wasn't a scary thing. It was like a very nurturing, comforting thing. It was like very grounding. So
it does feel like through your process, this liberation process that you're encountering, and that there is this element of surrender, but it does feel like the word nurture and comfort is coming up a lot for your experience, which I think that's an incredible gift, right? Because I think sometimes unraveling, untethering, like breaking free can be terrifying, you know, and not always nurturing. And so I'm so glad to hear, to feel that from you in this process that you're going through.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a pin in it right now and say for sure, you know, I haven't gone down the road too much of psychedelics as it relates to writing or experience on this podcast, but after your next retreat, maybe there's a part 2 sometime in the 25, 26 year where we can hear about how that's kind of coming for you.
I'm game. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have another one that you want to read? I was just looking back because when you said sweet surrender, I was like, did I use the word surrender? But I think it was surrounded. I went back to the one that I read, The Roots, years ago, clawed and sunk into the earth, surrounded, held, and permanent.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that's something that was resonant in what you were reading.
Definitely. Yeah. We were picking up some of the same things.
Yeah. How about another one?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. I think I'll read this to lose my voice and have to whisper everything. It's kind of a fun one. All right. So I've always been taught by mentors to set ambitious goals for myself and keep pushing the ceiling higher of what's possible in life. I learned from a relatively young age that I could experience or obtain almost anything I imagined, given enough time and commitment. However, the vision boards and bucket lists I made in my 20s would make me cringe today. They were filled with too many exotic cars and expensive vacations that I later realized were other people's dreams and not my own. So in the spirit of Andrea Gibson's recent article, To Make a Snow Angel on a Stranger's Grave, I decided to overhaul my bucket list and make it reflect more of where I'm at in my current stage of life. This is just the beginning of what I hope to become my ever-expanding bucket list of little things. All right. To stretch in the morning to the smell of coffee brewing. To dance out a disagreement instead of talking. To close my eyes and breathe through my nose. To forget my phone and get lost. To play kick the can and hear someone yell, "Ollie, Ollie, oxen free." To smile and paddle tap my partner when I hit the ball into the net. To say yes for a day to everyone who wants something from me. To drink tea with friends on my living room floor. To tip the FedEx driver. To tell a dad joke. To walk in the dark and feel afraid. To wonder if the crickets and frogs understand each other's songs. To write a poem and give it to a stranger. To help clean the garage at my ex-wife's house where I left the things I didn't want. To put pictures of my kids on the walls. To believe it gets better. To never close my heart. To walk to breakfast with friends and drink orange juice and laugh. To lose my voice and have to whisper everything. To cry while making love. To let the butterflies build in my stomach and remind me I'm alive. To hug someone from behind and kiss their ear. To share my secrets. To go to an open mic poetry night and feel held by a stranger's words. To fall asleep to someone telling me a story. To take pictures in the city. To laugh at the bad luck of getting my dad's toenails. To look in the mirror and see this won't last forever. To walk through the forest and know that I don't know. To search for a pod of ladybugs sleeping under a blanket of brown winter grass. To find someone in need of rescue. To knock on the door of a friend's house without texting or calling first. To stop pretending I can preserve my life.
I feel like there are a few of those things on that list that you're going to knock out in the very near future. Pictures of the city, right? Yeah. Tea on the living room. Yeah. I see that happening in San
very
Francisco
attainable.
with your
Yes.
Yes. And I even think, the delivery, it's the poem to a stranger. Write a poem for a stranger. Is that what is on the list?
Write a poem, give it to it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Give it. Yeah. And I feel like that's what we're doing here. I mean, we have this conversation. It goes into a little bit of a feeling of the void, but it lands in the AirPods, headphones, cars of perfect strangers sometimes, very often times,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like in light of wanting to sort of be loose in the rigidity, perhaps, some of this is a gift to a stranger.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you've just,
And I think one of the reasons I write and share is I just think it's one of the most generous things we can do with our lives. I've received so much in terms of just gifts and wisdom, learnings from other people as they've had the courage and the discipline, to just put things down on paper and share what they've learned in life and their experiences. And it's such a rich thing. And it's such a miracle almost to be able to kind of collectively have that kind of wisdom and just receive from other people the gifts that they want to give. And so I think for me, I look at it as a generous act of just being able to give a little bit back into the world.
Yeah. I love that very much. And it resonates with the type of wealth we've been given. We share, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. We're coming to closing here, but I want to first say if people are like, well, where can I read more of his work? We've referred to your Substack a bunch of times. We'll put the link in the show notes, but it is Aaron P. Nelson that they can find you on Substack. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Anywhere else? Any old mediums we should be looking up?
Yeah, that might not be in existence anymore. But people could go to Instagram. I oftentimes post when I post poetry or something kind of a shorter story, I'll put some kind of meaningful picture, that's associated with that. And I'll put it on Instagram. So Aaron P. Nelson is my Instagram handle.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you want to say before to either the listener or just the stranger?
Is there anything else I want to say? Something that, let's see. No. I don't think so.
Good.
It was going to sound too contrived and polished, and I think we'll leave it there. I think we're good.
We've said it all. Yeah. That's a great place. Ollie, Ollie, oxen free.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for this hour and this time and for sharing your dissolving, surrendering, all the things. And I think it's really going to help lift someone that's listening today. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Betsy. I really enjoyed it.
By Firelight is a Lit Path Studios production and is produced by Jamie Gale and Betsy Delzer. Music is by Legito Music and Pond 5. Thank you for being a part of our beautiful collection of stories.